we're going to take, at the beginning of the hour here, I'm started the recording, we are taking some questions from a practice version of the top 20. And I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask about these, because in a moment we're going to take a test just like this. And if there's something you're sitting there going, oh, I can't remember how to do that one, just ask me right now and we'll get those fixed so that after this we take it. And the other thing is, maybe you've got one where your way is slow. You might know how to do it, but your way is really slow. Because I'm going to give you a chance to set a time record today. Because in the past, the best I've ever had is a kid got this done in 8.5 minutes with an A on it, which means you can get a 19 or a 20. So if you want to try to set a time trial record, I'd love for you to be one of the people that either beats that record or joins the 8.5 minute club. Okay, which one?
Can we do the fast way of 13?
Yes. All right, so here's the fast way on this one. Everybody turn to number 13. And if I had to do this in the least amount of time possible, I would go, even though 15 is shorter to write, it's only shorter to write by a tiny bit. So I'd go times 5 times 3 on all of these. Then these 5s cancel, and these 3s cancel. And I'm left with 9a plus 15 times 2 is 30 equals 5 times 1 is 5. And there you go. And I bet you anything you know how to solve it from there. So that's the one step, boom. It's no longer as fractions. It's called clearing the fractions. Yes. All right, number 11. There is definitely a fast and a slow way on this one. The slow way is to multiply that thing all the way out, subtract 10 so that it's equal to 0, then use the quadratic formula. Here's the fast way. Square root both sides. And then it's absolute value, because I just did the square root of both sides. Now, some people like to slap a plus and minus on the root 10. That is wrong, because the square root of 10 isn't two things. Now, we split this into two parts. This could be equal to the square root of 10. X minus 4 equals the square root of 10. And x minus 4 equals opposite of the square root of 10. That's where those two come in, because of the absolute value split. Then, from here, I think you might be able to pull this up. We got a 1 positive and 1 negative square root of 10. And if we add 4 to both sides, I'm showing a little work you wouldn't have to show because it's like the ACT. We don't grade you on the work on this. Then I could just get to the final answer of 4 plus and minus the square root of 10. One of them's here, one of them's here.
So you don't care if we write them separately or write just the plus and minus in one thing?
You do not. I encourage you to put them together in one. That's better because it's more condensed. Yes. Number 1. Okay. An equation. Well, the first thing I'd do is I would go do this. And I would do it in this order. 5 minus the 6 over negative 1 minus the negative 2. What I'm finding here is m, aka the slope. Negative 1 over 1, which is negative 1. So I figured out the slope. Okay. The next part is you rearrange this y minus y1 over x minus x1 thing, and you get y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. That's one, if you haven't memorized it, you should definitely memorize it. They tell me that in calculus you use this form far more than mx plus b form, which you'd used a lot up until now. So this is worth memorizing. Then I go y minus, and I pick one of these 2 points. I'm going to pick that one. You could have picked either. And I'm going to go y minus 6 equals the slope, which we already figured out here was negative 1 times x minus the negative 2. If you left it that way, I'd complain a little bit because you shouldn't really have a double sign, so we should put a plus there. There's your answer. Is there other forms of the answer? Sure. Could you solve for y? Sure. Doing extra work, though, wasting time. Could you use the other point? Sure. Then these two numbers would be different. But that'd be the y and the x, respectively. All right, which one do you want to see? I can get through probably 10 of these. Yes?
Number 10.
Number 10. Okay. On this one, who knows what to do first? I'd like to get a little crowd participation here. Yes? You are correct. That's 2 square roots, everybody. Think of the 2 square roots, because this is one of the most common mistakes, is that people try to do this in their head quick and just go like, oh, it's 4 root 2. No, it's not. It's root 4 and root 2, which is 2 root 2. Then, after that's simplified, I honestly would take a second and rewrite it. -8 plus and minus 2 root 2 all over 2. And then I go, can I just cancel this 8 and this 2? No, you cannot. Second common mistake is people think they can cancel those two. They cannot. Why not? Because there's an add subtract going on. Just like 5 plus 1 over 5, you can't cancel those 5s and just make the answer 1. We know that's 6 over 5. That's not 1. So you can't cancel those 5s because of the plus. You can't cancel the 8 and the 2. But you can do my favorite thing. If you can factor it, you should. What can be factored? That can be factored. So what comes out of the top? A 2. Now, could you factor out a -2? Yeah, but we know down the road we're going to cancel it with this 2. So why not just factor out a 2? Because then they'll cancel nice. And that is the key step. Most people know to simplify the root. Second place mistakes are made is they try to cancel first. You got to factor first, and then you can cancel. And now I'd have left 4 plus and minus root 2. And that, it was a -8. Sorry, I had it off the screen. -4. There we go. Now those cancel, and the answer is -4 plus and minus the square root of 2. Who wants to see the fast way to do a different one? Yes. Number 2. Everybody look at number 2. First off, find the GCF and factor it out. This one happens to have a number that can be factored out first. Stella, do you know what that would be? So the 3 comes out, and I have 3x squared plus 1x minus 2. And then I would be suspicious because Mr. Server seems to be obsessed with factoring. Why am I obsessed with factoring? Only because this course keeps throwing in factoring all over the place. I had a kid that I worked with from South Dakota over doing a little tutoring over Google Meet. And guess what was happening in her class a lot? Factoring. I mean, it's just a big deal when you get to this level of math. And that was this thing we spent almost the whole hour on. All right, so this 3x and x is important because I think of this as 3 steps. First, you figure out what goes here. Then you figure out the signs. And in this case, we can know that there's a plus and a minus. Now, which way it goes, I might have to change that later, but don't stress about it. Just drop in a plus and a minus. And then last but not least, it has to be a 2 and a 1 because to make a 2, I need a 2 and a 1. And now I'll check, and I'll see if I randomly got lucky. I got -3x and +2x, and together those make -x. Important, that's not the same as x. I got -x. At that moment, some kids switch the numbers around, and you'd be wrong. If you get the opposite of what you wanted, you don't switch the numbers. What do you switch? The signs. Think of the signs as independent of the numbers. So that can be a negative now, and that can be a positive now, and that makes +3x and -2x, and that will equal +x. Yay, I factored it. And I have had kids get this far and then leave it that way. What were the directions? What are you supposed to do? Factor? No. Solve. So then you have to just take one more step and say the answers are -1. And if you have trouble doing this in your head, you're not alone. But I like to think of it this way. I want a 3 on the bottom here, so I put the 2 over the 3, and you see how the 3's will cancel, and the 2 minus 2 will make it, so 2/3 is the answer. But if you want the slower way, you go 3x minus 2 equals 0, and you solve the little equation, and x equals 2/3. There's your 2 answers. That, congratulations, is the hardest thing on the whole top 20. I judge it to be the hardest because I get the most questions about it consistently. And it involves like 2 different kinds of hard factoring and then knowing how to solve. So, all right, Jada.
Do you have to take the time to check if they're extraneous for that kind of problem?
I can just tell you a hack on the top 20. We never have extraneous answers, but I'm glad you know that on our pre-calc tests we often have extraneous answers. So, yes.
Number 8.
Number 8. All right, it's right there. Okay, I think of this as 3 separate little problems. I got my numbers, I got my x's, and I got my y's. Wait, I just messed that up. And my y is all alone up there. So it's just going to be in the answer on the top. So the answer's got a y on top. Now if I simplify 5 over 15, I'm trying to show you my favorite way of doing this. 5 times 3 is 15. And then the cool part is, cancel, cancel. I know there's a 3 on the bottom. Okay. Then this last thing is that x to the third over x to the second. Now I can break this up into xxx and an xx on the bottom, and I think you'd see that 2 of them will cancel. So I got 1x left and it's on the top. There it is, xy over 3. Next one. Yes? Number 3. And please, if you're about to get one wrong, you're looking at it and you're going, I don't know this one. Ask me. I can probably finish 15 of them if I have to. 3 squared is 9. And then when you do a to the third squared, a lot of people get confused on whether that is the kind where you multiply or is that the kind where you add. So to decide, I would just go like this. That means a squared. And nobody is going to look at that and think the answer is a to the 5th. So if you're ever confused on that one, break it up into exploded view like that. So now I know that's got to be a to the 6th. And then that must be b to the 8th. The next thing people want to do is distribute this. I get it. 99 times out of 100 you distribute when there's a number in front of the parentheses. Why do we not distribute this time? There's no add or subtract in here. So this is just like 9 times 3 times 2. You wouldn't distribute that. You could drop those parentheses and just multiply it out. So this is times 9a squared b to the 6th. So the weird thing here is you didn't need the parentheses. You can drop them. It's rare, but you can. Okay, you can't always, but you can in this type of problem. Now I got to put this and this together. Well, last time we multiplied it. We're going to multiply again? Of course not. We're going to add. So this 9 times 9 ends up being 81. A to the 6th, no, plus 2 is 8. And b to the 14th. Okay, any others you'd like to see? Yes? Number what?
7.
Number 7. All right. This sometimes is just confusing by the wording. This is the word for, m. So they're asking us to solve it for m. And so I'm trying to get this m alone. So then how do I get the m alone? I'm going to divide both by c squared. And the c squareds cancel. E over c squared, the end. People get confused when you have multiple variables. That's called a literal equation. Yes? 19. All right. Distance. Okay. It's a fight club. You got a fight going on between the x's and the y's. And if you were to go between, like looking at a fight, they're squared up against each other. And then I'm going to put a plus in the middle. Now, I'm going to get DALL-E to make me a cool fight club picture with 2 x's fighting each other and 2 y's fighting each other and a little plus sign in between them to see if I can make a visual picture of this, which I can put on the wall. I think that'd be kind of cool. But anyway, I'm going to have my x's fighting each other. And the cool part is I'm going to square it, so I don't care if I do 0 minus 5 or 5 minus 0. 5 minus 0 is easier, so I'll do it that way. And then the other ones, -4, I'm not going to overthink this, minus -8. Those are the y's subtracted. So then this is 25 plus, and then this is Positive 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Square root of that, so it's really the square root of 30, 41, and there we go. Was it the formula mostly that you'd forgotten? It just happens. Just try to remember it's a fight between the x's and a fight between the y's, and there's a plus sign in the middle.
It's a fight between the same person.
Any others that you'd like to see? Yes. Number 20. All right, on number 20, the first part is pretty straightforward. You just have to multiply this out. You get 8x plus 9 times 4 is 36. But here's where people get confused because there's this minus. Well, it's just distributing a negative 1 to both parts. So that's negative x and positive 1. Then I'm going to put this and this together in my head. And I have an 8 minus a 1x makes 7x plus 37 equals 10x plus 1. Then I'm going to take away the smaller of the two variables. Why the smaller one, Mr. Server? Because it gets it so you don't have any negatives. That's always good if you can make it so there's no negatives. So if you get rid of the smaller one, that'll work. So now I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I get 36 equals 3x, so I think x is 12. Any others you'd like to see? Okay, so here's the plan. I get for some of you, this is like Mr. Server. I've gotten a 20 twice now in this thing. Well, cool. Today, think of it as a time trial, and when you do free throws, you just don't tell your coach, I already can shoot free throws. Yeah, you've got to practice them so you'll be really good when you need it. Okay? I already made 10 out of 10 last time. Well, that's awesome. Now try to make 10 out of 10 faster than you did last time. So that's even more automatic. Okay? So I'm going to tell you what time we're starting, which will be in about 30 seconds. I'm going to hand them out in here in a minute. And then I'm going to ask you to time yourself. Your homework will be another top 20. Yes, we're just really drilling to make sure you're good when you need it. So for those following along at home, after school today, all the folders will be open, and you're going to do one top 20 is version 4, and then you'll grade it yourself and you'll drop it in the Dropbox. That's all I got for you for today.